We hear a lot of pain points from these nonprofits that, oh, this board member told me that this other nonprofit is doing this huge gala. We should do the same thing. Or, oh, I just saw this webinar and there was a very successful Facebook fundraiser. We need to do the same thing, whatever it might be. And so it's that like shiny syndrome, like shiny object syndrome, where it comes in, it's like, oh, I must be doing this and then this. And then you totally forget what you were supposed to be doing. So that's why we go through this clarified process of what are
Yeah.
three main fundraising activities that we think is there's going to be the highest ROI.
Welcome to the Focus Fundraiser, where we spend time with seasoned fundraisers discussing what they've learned and giving you their hard-earned wisdom on what moves a mission forward. Because something that we believe is doing more does not lead to success, focusing on what matters most does. And today is special because I have two guests joining the conversation who fundraise for global causes with local donors. Morgan Gross and Sjeel Haarhuis are the team behind Fundraising Beyond Borders. And between them, they have built award-winning campaigns across East and Southern Africa and spent well over a decade raising money for causes that donors may never actually see in person. So if you've ever tried to connect a distant cause to a local donor, this conversation is built for you. Can't wait to dive into it. Morgan and Sjeel, welcome. Start us off. I'll have you go first, Morgan, but share a little bit about yourselves and your paths into the nonprofit sector.
Sure, absolutely. Rob, thanks so much for having us. We're really excited to be here and dive into one of our favorite topics. Like you said, it's not as common of a topic, and it's harder to, fundraising is hard in general, but fundraising for international causes is kind of the next level. So we're excited to dive in. But a little bit about my background. I actually originally was a teacher. I was teaching second grade in Missouri. When I was in second grade, I said I want to become a second grade teacher, and that's exactly what I did. So was teaching second grade, and then in 2014 co-founded a nonprofit in Missouri and really loved the development side of things, the fundraising of it, and then had a third passion for travel. And long story short, moved out to Zambia, Africa. That was in 2016. I was supposed to be here 6 months, and 10 years later, I'm still here. So it's been a very fun journey. Was able to work with dozens of nonprofits all across East and Southern Africa, and started Fundraising Beyond Borders in 2023 to support international nonprofits. We have grown to a team of 11 people, and we get to support amazing nonprofits through fractional fundraising plans and fundraising coaching. So that's kind of the bulk of what we do, but it's been a fun journey, and really blessed to be where I am today. She'll go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us, obviously. Yeah, my name is Shale. So I am originally from the Netherlands, but I am also based in Zambia now. And actually, very similar story to Morgan. I initially came out here for 6 months, and was more on like working for like a nonprofit, but more on like the project management side. But kind of like always found myself in different like fundraising roles. And now looking back as well, my time in the Netherlands was always somehow, related to like community work or fundraising. But I never really like thought about having a career in it. And then worked for several like smaller nonprofits, like from like a donkey sanctuary to gender equality education. And then now just over 2 years with Fundraising Beyond Borders, and mainly doing all the operations, but also helping clients with donor communications and CRM and all the good stuff.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to dive into this with you guys. You have a wealth of knowledge to share to our listeners. The first question I've got is to qualify this for those that might not feel like, if they've got localized nonprofit, they might assume that international fundraising has nothing to teach them. So my question to open-ended, either one of you can answer this. What crosses over regardless of where the cause sits?
Yeah, absolutely. So with international fundraising, we have kind of four pillars of where we find and we think kind of is like the foundations of fundraising for international programs. But it correlates and is um, it correlates to national causes and national fundraising as well. So those four pillars of what we say is building trust, communication, but we label it as cultural communication, having a strong digital presence, and connection. So with international fundraising, we have to work a little bit harder on those things, and I can dive into that a little bit later. But with those four pillars, that really pertains to anyone that is fundraising. So yeah, it's kind of
Sheil, any addition that you have thoughts on?
No, and I think we've obviously kind of been on like an interesting journey as well, where it's like if someone says international fundraising, it could be anything, right? Like I think also like a lot of people always think it could be donors from like Europe or the States or Australia or wherever. So it's like for us, it's now we're focusing a bit more on the US like nonprofits, but like Morgan said, like it could be fundraising in any, kind of capacity, whether that's just like a national cause and you have only, fund of like donors from your own country, but it could also just be that you have donors from like all across the world, basically. So there's lots of different, like segments to international fundraising.
So yeah, let's dive into I would assume the digital side of things, because that's a big piece of this proponent, like a big proponent, because you can't sit down with somebody over coffee when they're, a world away. So curious to know your guys' thoughts. What actually moves someone to give to a place that they can't picture or physically connect to? How have you guys found success with fundraising to connect those
yeah.
people to those causes?
Yeah, and why we kind of talk about those foundations is we think those are kind of layered, even especially within the digital presence. So before anyone is ever going to even make a donation to your cause, you're going to have to build that donor trust. You're going to have to story tell, and you're going to have to really work prior to that donation actually happening. And how do you do that? Especially if you're mobilizing donors throughout the US or you're mobilizing donors internationally, it's going to be through a strong digital presence. And that is, throughout your social media, that is throughout your email. But then when you're kind of diving more into things, is okay, like, are there simple things, as in, like, if you're trying to attract US donors, but you have global causes, making sure that, like, as simple as your EIN number is listed on your website. So an American donor sees, okay, I can, have some sort of benefit uh, as an American, a tax benefit. Or then too, like, how are we going to actually story tell? Why am I going to actually care about a cause that is not in my own backyard? You're going to have to work really hard to showcase, the impact and showcase the why. And also, again, with that donor trust is showcasing, like, where is that dollar actually going, and how is it actually equaling impact. So yeah, unfortunately, it is harder to sit down over coffee, like you're saying, with a donor, but there's still other opportunities to build that connection and build that trust through your digital presence. And it's also as simple as making sure that your online donation form is optimized, and making sure that when they go to check out, they feel confident and they feel secure, and that their donation is and that their money and their credit card or whatever processing payment.
Good. Sheil?
For sure. And I think also, what I've realized as well is that like, and especially for like a small to mid-sized nonprofit, I think you always get a bit overwhelmed, by like seeing all these like multi-million-dollar nonprofits doing all these really fancy, campaigns and graphics and, all these things. So I think what we're seeing, the success is as well, like obviously everything is digital, but like you can still show up really like authentically. So it's like going live on your Instagram, or, do a day in the life of like one of your students, or I don't know, even if it's an animal sanctuary, you could do a day in the life of an animal, or, there's like a lot of like fun ways to do it. And I think sometimes like um nonprofits just get a bit like everything needs to be super polished, but it actually doesn't, because that gives donors, that really good that look behind the scenes, and like, oh, actually if I donate $50, I can see where it goes. And it doesn't always have to be, fancy graphics. And I think that's been really fun as well to do with clients. So I think that's where what I initially also always thought, like, it has to be super, like fancy and polished, but it really doesn't.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. I think that there was an interesting evolution that happened with that. If we were talking 15 years ago, we would be saying it needs to be polished. It needs to show professionalism, that you're a real organization. And now just the influx of amount of media that we have and how much easier it is to make it professional. Now it's like it needs to be raw. It needs to be authentic, because polished, it doesn't feel authentic anymore. I'm
Yeah.
curious to know channels. So we're talking about social, we're talking about email. What the donor journey with this, and I loved that you brought in on Morgan just like making sure that the giving experience is polished as well. But tell me your guys's like, let's get practical for our listeners. What's like the simplest thing that they should focus on? Is it email and then giving? You know what I mean? Like, what are the channels that you guys recommend?
Sure. I think it depends on, acquisition or retention. So if we're looking like from the acquisition journey of like trying to acquire donors, they're going to land on most like your social media, where we're seeing conversion is both. It is actually interesting, with the authentic piece, both Instagram, like Instagram is a really great place to be authentic and showing up there. We have some nonprofits that are showing up on TikTok. And then also being a thought leader on LinkedIn has been really powerful too for some of our clients as well. And so different channels in social media. I wish there was like a playbook
One
for this,
answer. Yeah.
right? Where I could just give you the answer. Every nonprofit's kind of different. It kind of depends on um the cause that they're showing up for. So, when it comes to acquisition in your digital presence, I would say that, and then your website, making sure your website is showing the programs, it's optimized there. It's showing again behind the scenes, making sure that like little things as like your board members are there and showing, talking about your programs and just making sure that your website is really optimized, and then to your donate that leads then to your donation page and making sure that you're using technology. I mean, it's incredible, technology like Donor Doc and allows people to give seamlessly. And we're used to an instant culture these days of if I'm going to make a donation, I want to make sure that it's easy, low lift. So using technology like that. And then, on the back end is then retention. So how are we going to steward our donors? And that's where email comes in and is really powerful there too. And I didn't mention as well as when we're actually acquiring donors and doing digital campaigns. Digital campaigns is going to be huge for international fundraising. So doing your asks via email. So making sure you have a strong email list, making sure that you have an email platform that works for you is going to be really important.
Hmm, that's good.
Yeah. And I think
Morgan,
also an
yeah,
interesting like thing I saw the other day as well is that like actually these days, also making sure your mobile version of all of this is really up to date
yes,
because like
yeah.
I saw like I can't even remember the percentage now, but it was like credit card payments were down, as in people just want to click Apple Pay something and just make a donation. So I think yeah, no matter what channel the nonprofit uses, also just to make sure that the mobile, version is also optimized.
And Rob, I
So
talk about kind of
yeah,
sorry to interrupt, just real quick about stewardship too with the email piece is what we're seeing, in email, and you were talking about like getting specific is like, yes, showing up authentic, but making sure that what you're sending out is actually what people are wanting to read and is
mm,
engaging. And if you're not going to sit down and take the time to read it, don't put it out. Oftentimes I feel like there's a lot of advice these days, like you have to send emails weekly or you have to send them bi-weekly or whatever it is, but making sure that that content that is going out is actually really engaging and is something that you're proud of and is showing, behind the scenes content and showing exactly where that dollar is going. And yeah, just showing up in a really powerful way on email. And we're kind of thinking it through, not just to send an email because, I listened to a webinar and they told me I need to send an email every week. So showing up in a fun, engaging way.
yeah. Well, I think you brought something up earlier, Morgan, that is ties into this, which is there is. I think you guys believe that customized plans are better than like a borrowed playbook, right? And so you can't just say like, "Hey, here, take this playbook and run it for your organization." You need to customize it. I'd be curious to know, how do you pressure test that plan as you guys are helping these nonprofits? Because to your point, like making sure that you are writing an email that they care about. How do you pressure test that? Making sure that
Yeah.
the social media is landing all of that. How do you guys look at that?
Yeah. I mean, we go with all of our clients and all of our services that we do, we go through a 4-phase approach. And the first, talking about, like, how do we pressure test it? The first is assess. So we deep dive into, like, okay, what's working, what's not working. And part of that is donor interviews. And I still think that's really important, whether it's a virtual donor interview, if you can meet with them for coffee, if you can do a survey, through your email list, if you can, just using different mediums to then get feedback. I think that's really important. Oftentimes, I feel like we're assuming things these days. So, in that assessment phase, how can you get actual feedback from the donors, from the volunteers, from the supporters, from your social media following, things like that? And that will really give you some good data to then figure out, okay, what course of action can I take? And we also figure out, is like, who is your ideal donor? Where are they showing up? Where are they hanging out? Where can I focus on that? I think oftentimes, nonprofits are like, oh, I want everyone and anyone. It's like, no, let's really figure out, like, who is your ideal donor. Are you in healthcare? So is your donor, are they doctors? Are they nurses? Are they, if you're in education, are they teachers? Or are they families with, with little kids, whatever it might be? And then, kind of figure out where they're hanging out. If they're on a certain social media platform, or if they're, in a Facebook community group or whatever that might be. I think it's nice to really make sure you take that time to assess and get good feedback.
It's good. Sheila, anything to add?
No, I was, yeah, when Morgan was speaking, I was like instantly thinking like exactly the who's your ideal donor. So we're
Yeah.
working with an organization, and they have the capacity to maybe do like a monthly newsletter and maybe some social media, but they know that for their donors, they're not really on social media. So they're still active there, still have a presence, but they're focusing more on maybe doing handwritten notes from a board member, or, just doing emails and things like that. So yeah, I think like Morgan mentioned, just making sure that, you put your time and energy where your ideal donor is. I think that's the main piece.
Yeah, I love the focus on that because it is so easy to feel like you need to be on every social
Yeah.
media channel if you're going to do social, but it's like, no, where are your ideal donors actually living? Is it X? Is it LinkedIn? Is it, all of those, and then focus on that. I think part of that too. So, Sheil, I think you've spoken recently about fundraising with small teams or lean teams.
Hmm.
Uh, for the solo development director, or for the lean team where they've only got a couple people and they were wearing all the hats,
Hmm.
what is the first thing that they should stop doing because it's eating time and it's not raising money?
Well, that's a difficult one. Well, I think, and then this, I think again ties in with like, all the like polished, kind of graphic and stuff. So we actually, were comparing, a really big, charity water video, versus just showing up. And we always use, this example a lot of, Roots Ethiopia, that Megan just goes online every week. LinkedIn, she does a minute. So I think that would be my first thing for, an overwhelmed team to like stop doing those like long, super polished videos. Like it's just not worth your time. Rather just go live on Instagram or on, Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever you might be. I think that will save you a lot of time, and I think will actually help, create that authentic relationship. And that's almost the same with your like newsletters or, I think a lot of nonprofits, everyone obviously, needs and wants to do an annual report. But what we do as well is like impact reports. So it's like every 6 months you have like a mid-year impact report. And it doesn't need to be 5 pages long. It could be just one page with all your core numbers. So it's like, instead of spending loads and loads of time on, I don't know, a 10, 20 page annual report, you can break it down and do it quarterly, or, we like to do them mid-year. So it's like a little mid-year check-in. I think those two things, yeah, for me would be like, I would stop those and yeah, focus on the bit more like the authentic and yeah, less time.
I'll open this up to both of you because I think what you're talking about is busyness, right? It's easy to just find things that you feel like you need to be doing a 10-page report versus a one page. So, where do you guys find, or where do you guys see orgs confusing busyness with building fundraising capacity?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I was talking kind of about our approach, so we have the assess phase, which is the first phase, and then we go into clarify. And what we talk about, oftentimes the small to medium sized nonprofits is, lack of capacity or skill or, whatever it might be. We hear a lot of pain points from these nonprofits that, oh, this board member told me that this other nonprofit is doing this huge gala. We should do the same thing. Or, oh, I just saw, I attended this webinar and there was a very successful Facebook fundraiser. We need to do the same thing, whatever it might be. And so it's that like shiny syndrome, like shiny object syndrome, where it comes in, it's like, oh, I must be doing this and then this. And then you totally forget what you were supposed to be doing. So that's why we go through this clarified process of what are 3 main fundraising activities that we think is there's going to be the highest ROI. And I think that's like something that nonprofits should really focus in on when you're looking at your fundraising plan. And by the way, a fundraising plan doesn't have to be a 40-page report that just sits, in Google Drive and never gets looked at. It can be a really tangible plan that's a calendar. But focus in and check in on that calendar and that plan and making sure that, like, am I sticking to 2 to 3 fundraising activities that I know we're going to be really good at, that, we have strengths in these, our donors are showing up this way, and run with it, and try to stick to that and not being pulled in kind of other directions. So I think that really helps small to medium sized nonprofits not feel that overwhelm and feel like, yes, okay, I can actually achieve it. And by the end of the 12 months, they see that ROI, they see that return, because they focused in and was really good at those 2 to 3 different fundraising streams.
So good. Sheil, anything to add?
No, I think that's it really. Like, yeah, like Morgan said, I think it's very easy to get, completely kind of like overwhelmed, and you see all these things and you want to, do it all. But especially when you're a small team, yeah, that just doesn't always work. So really focusing on a few fundraising strategies that, you're going to see your highest return on investment. And it is really interesting sometimes, like, to see these nonprofits go through that phase where it's like, like, okay, we have this idea, and then we're going to do a marathon and we're going to do all these things. But then, like, over time, you really see them, getting focused and, actually like seeing results. And yeah, it's just like a great thing to be part of as well.
Yeah. And it's interesting because this happens with any org, for profit and
Mm.
nonprofit. You see what's happening in the space. You're seeing what your competitors are doing, or your friendly competitors, if you want to call them that. The one thing that we've adopted in our culture is, rather than saying no to things, we say not yet. So if we have a really, like, that would be a fantastic idea,
Hmm.
we say not yet, and we upfront say, like, no, we're not going to do it right now, but that we're not going to close the door completely.
Love that.
I love that.
We have with one
Yeah.
client, we have just a big ideas list that's running right now because they are full of ideas, and I love that. We never want to smash that creativity and bring it on. I think it's great, but yeah, I really like that, Rob. It's not a never know.
Yeah. All right. I always end with what I call the tactical takeaway question. This is something very practical that fundraisers can do today. So, Sheila, I'll start with you. What is
Hmm.
one thing every fundraiser should do today that you believe matters most?
Um, Yeah, I think I'll just go back to like the authentic piece and just like, and I know it's scary sometimes and, like you don't actually want to do it, but I would say every fundraiser, whether you're an executive director or, a development, just like maybe every week, maybe every day is a lot, but yeah, just go on LinkedIn Live or Instagram Live and just show a behind the scenes, whether that's you talking or, showing, especially if you're doing global programs, just go out and show something that is behind the scenes that is not edited, and just, go live, publish it right away. I would start with that.
Morgan?
That shield. I think a big piece is relationship. I mean, that's the foundation of what fundraising is, right? Is building those relationships. It's hard when you have supporters maybe all around the world, all over the U.S., whatever it might be. But building those relationships is going to really pay off for both, building long-term supporters and um, volunteers or donors or whoever it might be that you're working alongside. But building those relationships is going to be huge, and there's really creative ways that you can do that virtually these days as well. So be afraid to build them virtually. Pick up, virtual coffee chats, or there's videos that you can do thanking people these days, or whatever it might be. But we're going to have to work a little bit. I mean, any nonprofit these days has to work hard to build relationships, but when you're fundraising internationally, you just have to work a little bit harder. So break it down. It might feel overwhelming, like kind of Sheil was saying, to do it every day of how you're going to build a relationship, but figure out how you and your team can build those really nice relationships, and it will pay off. And I think the next kind of, we talk about this a lot within our organization, is relationships, yes, is key, but now also how are you going to build community? And people are looking for community and really are craving it. So as you build those relationships, continue to build then community in return.
So good. Yeah, couldn't agree more. I love that. Great way to end. I feel like we got double the wisdom today because we had double the guests. You guys were fantastic. Morgan and Jill, thank you for joining the conversation today. How can listeners connect with you, connect with your team?
Yeah, absolutely. You can connect on our website, fundraisingbeyondborders.com. We're both on LinkedIn as well. We love to chat via LinkedIn. And then, we have some free resources talking about community as well. We have some great, we have a community coming out for EDs and founders within global nonprofits. So yeah, lots of opportunities to connect. And we love having conversations. So please do connect.
Perfect. And if you're curious about how DonorDoc can help you find this clarity and build retention through what we call smart stewardship, which we talked a lot about today, you can visit us at donordoc.com to learn more about that. And we will see you next week.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.